Imagine for a second that I'm not a pianist and that I'm a bricklayer, and I've been tasked with building a brick wall. The wall has to come up to this level. It has to be 12 bricks high, so 12 rows of bricks. But when I put the bricks one on top of the other, they actually reach here. And that's because the bricks are a little bit too wide to come up to the necessary level. So I have a couple of ways I can get around this. I can either shave a little bit off the width of each brick equally so that it looks like they're the same size and they stack up to the right level, or I could maybe take quite a lot off the brick at the top and leave the rest of them intact, or I could create a pattern by shaving some off some of the bricks and leaving some of the bricks intact so that they fit. This is the situation that people are confronted with when they tune a keyboard instrument, because all 12 tones of the chromatic scale, if they're tuned acoustically pure, add up to more than the octave. So we're confronted with the decision to either temper them all equally, so take the same amount off each interval so that they all fit, which is the modern tuning solution. It's called equal temperament, or to do as I suggested before, shave quite a lot of one of the intervals, which is the oldest temperament, which was called Pythagorean temperament, or various other shapes and forms of reducing some of the intervals but not all of them, or not necessarily all in the same ratio, so that you're left with something that is a little bit more bendy shaped. When Bach wrote the Well-Tempered Clavier, Well-Temperament was not equal temperament. This is not what he had in mind. He had in mind a tuning system where it was possible to play each work without retuning the instrument, but where you would be able to celebrate the different mood of each of the key areas. My piano at home, my thoroughly modern piano, is never tuned nowadays to equal temperament. I keep it at Bach's temperament, as extrapolated by the harpsichordist Bradley Lehman. And it's how I believe Bach kept his instrument tuned. We know that he was very fussy about tuning and preferred to deal with it himself. And I've become very comfortable with this way of tuning, and I really enjoy working with it because it gives me an extra dimension of expression when no two key areas sound the same. C major sounds very different from A flat major in equal temperament. Of course, they all sound identically out of tune, but none of them are actually in tune. So one of the first things I do when I get my piano tuned is to sit down and play myself through number 1 from book 1 of the 48, just to enjoy the purity of C major. So you've got a very nice pure third. you see, for me, that brings, the tuning alone brings a radiance to the music. The price you pay for that is that some of the key areas don't sound quite so sweet. So there's very placid sounding F major is very placid sounding. D flat major is a little bit more sour, so is A flat major. Czerny edited the works of Bach for Edition Peters. He studied the 48 with Beethoven. And I wonder what Well-Temperament meant to him, because when Bach wrote this music, he was helping to show a new way, perhaps, of tuning keyboard instruments that made them more versatile. I think it likely that by the time we get into the 19th century, this type of tuning had already become standard. So there are people who believe that equal temperament would have been expected by composers in the 19th century. I would suggest that that's not necessarily the case, and is not necessarily the case for much later than most people realise. So I consider myself to be a well-tempered romantic. I'm perfectly comfortable playing the music of Chopin or Liszt with this type of tuning system. I believe it's the sort of thing that they may have expected. For me, it sounds wonderful. The instrument certainly vibrates very differently, and it sounds much more open. Or another example would be... You see how going from the out of tune third here, resolving to this third here, it's already expressive. I don't actually need to do anything.